God, we understood in our minds, we proclaimed in our lips, and may dwell in our hearts. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays his life down for the sheep. A hired man who's not a shepherd and whose sheep are not his own sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know mine, and mine know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice. And there'll be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have power to lay it down and power to take it up again. This command I've received from my Father. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
As I said at the beginning, we celebrate Good Shepherd Sunday, always the fourth Sunday of Easter, and we always hear our gospel passage from John where Jesus says he's the Good Shepherd. And in today's passage, the line that really stuck out for me was, I lay down my life for my sheep. I know them, and they know me. There's a relationship, a bond. And so I'd like to just think about and reflect about just the different shepherds that we've had and tell you a little bit about another shepherd. It was quite amazing. It's told through the eyes of, and the life experience of Ted Wojciechowski. Ted Wojciechowski died several years ago in his 90s. He was born and raised in Poland. He was Jewish. And when he was 20 years old, 1939, it was Ted's village that had was the first village the Nazis came in and bulldozed and razed when they took over and invaded Poland. Ted, as a 20-year-old, says, I got to do something. He was bright. He was good with languages. He was fluent in English. So every night, Ted would listen on his shortwave radio to the BBC in London and get their side of the story because, they were being fed all this Nazi stuff, And so he would translate it back into Polish, print them up, copy them, and spread these leaflets throughout the town and village and also their surrounding region. Gave people hope. The Nazis didn't like that. And so they were after him. They knew they wanted his head. And so Ted said, it's too dangerous to stay here. I gotta go. And so what he did was he just took a backpack and he got on his bicycle, his only mode of transportation, and he rode from his home to the border of Hungary. All right, he gets to the border, and the Nazis are there, of course. They radio back to control or the headquarters, and they say, nab him, grab him. So Ted gets arrested, and he goes to the dreaded prison called Auschwitz. All right, 1940, he goes to Auschwitz. This is before they started the gas chambers there, but still, it was a ghastly place. Horrible, horrible place. All right, so Ted is there. 5 years, he's there. While he's there were some daring, brave, courageous prisoners who tried to escape. And when Nazis had a rule, when one person escapes, they kill 10 of the prisoners. So to try to give an incentive to stay there and not try to escape. And so one day, the Nazis put all these couple thousand of prisoners in the main prison yard. They're all lined up in rows. Ted is in the 8th row, so he's hoping and praying that they'll pick those 10 random prisoners before they get to him. And as they're doing this, he's watching this, and they pick this one guy. This one guy says, what about my wife? What about my kids? I have a family. And the commandant said, tough, you're going to die. Until another prisoner came up and said, I'll take his place. He was a priest. His name was Maximilian Kolbe, St. Maximilian Kolbe. He was a Franciscan. He was in charge of the Franciscan order in Poland, in Warsaw. He had 647 priests underneath him. So he was a big catch for the Nazis to have in there. And so when Maximilian Kolbe came up to the prison guard and said, I'll go. The prison guard recognized him and said, you're one of those vermin priests, aren't you? Max didn't say a thing. And the Nazis didn't want to, expend or waste the money on using their precious bullets on these prisoners. And so what they did is they took a small little bunkhouse and they took these 10 people, including Father Max, put them in there, locked the door. That's it. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink, starving to death. After 3 weeks, one of the prison guards goes in there, make sure they're all dead, and 9 of the 10 were dead. The only one still alive was Father Max. All right? And the Nazis were impatient for him to die. They were not going to wait any longer for him to die because they needed that room to put more prisoners in. So they injected him, gave him a lethal injection. And he died by lethal injection. Ted sees all this. You know, he's a witness to all this. Then in early January 1945, Ted and a couple thousand other prisoners are ordered to go on a march, a death march, to another horrific prison called Dachau. Why? I don't know, but they were marched off to Dachau. And as they're marching off to Dachau, Ted says, I'd rather escape and get killed than just go to another one of these death camps. And he said, it's better for me just to die. I'm not going to live my life that way. And so, with much courage, during the march to Dachau, he escapes. He runs away. Bullets are going after him. They're shooting after him. None of them hit him. He makes it into a small village. And who does he find? This poor Jewish guy, young man. He finds another priest. And the priest takes him in. And the priest feeds him and clothes him and fixes him up and hides him at great risk. Because if the Nazis found out, they'd kill them both. And he sheltered him until the end of the war, the end of 1945. And so Ted, after that, the war was over. He emigrated to Chicago. He went to the University of Illinois, and he got a degree in engineering. He fell in love. He got married, had kids, had grandkids. He settled in a town called Skokie, which is a predominantly Jewish suburb north of Chicago. And he lived out the rest of his days. He just died, just a few years ago. He lived a long, fruitful life. He wouldn't have had if it wasn't for those 2 priests who were willing to lay down their life for him. And it got me thinking, think about in your own lives those shepherds, those pastors, those priests who were there at pivotal moments of your life, who were there at the time when things were in a state of flux, or a time of transition, or pain, or loss. Who was the priest? Who was the shepherd that helped you through those times? I think about the list of pastors and shepherds that we have had here. My predecessor, Father Tom, he was responsible for that massive renovation project that we had here. That's a lot of work. I've done those, believe me. It's a lot of work. I think about his predecessor, Father Rich, with his partner in ministry, Sister Anastasia. What a dynamic duo. Revitalizing the RCIA, starting up again and reformatting our PSR, our Youth Faith Formation Program. All right? Putting up the bell tower. All right? They started this wonderful thing called the Appreciation Dinner, where people come and Father Moore would be the bartender, and serve everybody drinks. I think about his predecessor, Father West. Father West was a real pastor. Not only was he a pastor here, he was a pastor, a shepherd to the hospital at the VA, and a shepherd, a chaplain to the prisoners at the Marion Penitentiary. And I think of his predecessor, Father Tom Cirillo. All right? What a formidable pastor and strong pastor he was. He was the one responsible for building the Family Life Center, which you guys are sitting in right now. All right? If it wasn't for him, I can't imagine this parish without that building. All right? These are all priests, shepherds, that are flawed, just like you and me, that try to lead you and lead the people to God. For the people at St. Paul's in Johnson City, I think of Sister Catherine. My favorite memory of hers was one day I was on the board of consultants with the diocese. Bishop Gregory was here, now Cardinal Gregory. And she came in asking a request to build that parish center. And Bishop Gregory asked her, how are you going to build this? And she answered with one word, spaghetti. And we all laughed. And Mr. Gregory's like, you're not serious, are you? He said, we'll do it with spaghetti dinners. We raise $10,000 a spaghetti dinner. We'll do it twice a year, $20,000 a year. We'll have it paid off before you know it. Everyone was like incredulous. Are you serious? They let her do it. She paid it off early. Thanks to spaghetti dinners. What a great pastor. All right, I think of her predecessor, Dobie, Father or Monsignor Dobkowski. You know, he was my mentor when I was first assigned and newly ordained in Heron. He was my go-to guy. What do I do when this happens or that happens? You know, and then when I became pastor for the first time at St. John's in West Frankfort, Father Dobie was my go-to guy. You know, and I think, you know, I see some people here from Pinckneyville. You know, what great shepherds we've had there. Father Gene Wojcik, you know, Father John Vendigoni, Monsignor McCormick. These are great, great people who were flawed like us, but they served. And so I want to ask you to do a couple things. One, say a prayer for those shepherds, for those pastors who helped you become who you are today, who helped you through rough waters. Say a prayer for them. After all, they're probably a little closer to God than we are, right? And two, thank God for them, say a prayer for them, and two, ask God to give us the strength that we too can be shepherds, that we too, through our prayer, through our example, through our compassion and generosity, that we too can lead others to Christ. Amen.